Hi, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Matairsha Izata, and in this video, I'm going to review the material from Dr. Dean about audience research. Okay, now from the beginning, he explained the beginning of the audience research. Okay, so the first thing is audience research is two distinct approaches which is characterized by their aspirations and their underlying ideologies. In the early stages, the mass media possessed significant influence and the capacity to modify audience behavior. And then Frankfurt School stated that the ruling elite employed mass media to shape and to suppress the lower classes, compelling them to conform to the government's desires and mm, uh, and the extreme right-wing nationalist ideology of the Nazis. And then from Morley stated that the early studies on audiences and media effects emerged as a reaction against the pessimistic ways, pessimistic fears expressed by Frankfurt scholars as advocated by American researchers. And then next, in the beginning of audience research, it is influenced by the propaganda disseminated by the ruling factions within society. And then in this era, also the mass media functioned as a hypodermic needle. This beginning era and then received a criticism. The first criticism is the assumption of a homogeneous and passive audience. And then the next criticism is assuming media messages possess the ability to induce behavioral changes. Frankfurt School researchers presented media effects as excessively direct, overlooking the pluralistic nature of American society, which differed from German society. Next, we move to the effects tradition. This research emerged in the United States after the World War II. There is an assumption. Media messages have a direct and powerful impact on audience behavior and attitudes. There are two orientations or approaches in this tradition effects. The first one is the message effect orientation, characterized by a behaviorist and empirical perspective, employ laboratory research, examine changes in audience behavior when exposed to or influenced by media message. And then number two is the audience-oriented approach, a structural functional approach, and focus on the social characteristics of diverse audiences, such as class background, educational levels, and other social factors. The social characteristics influence how audiences receive or reject media messages. In this beginning era, there are problems and limitations in this study. The first is it failed to investigate the constructed and manufactured nature of violent images that portrayed in television programs and films. And then it suggests the mass media is the sole cause that encourages violent behavior. Now we move to the next era where there is a critical perspective on audience research. In this critical perspective of audience studies begin by advancing several criticisms of the earlier studies and perspectives. The first one is there's heavy reliance on empirical data in understanding and interpreting the meanings of media, messages, and images. The second one is there's the fundamental philosophy and concepts of this perspective still remain functionalist and behaviorist. In this era, it is known as the reception analysis, or and then it's more famously known as the encoding and decoding of media messages. In this era, it began by examining communication holistic context, and then viewing the entire communication process as inseparable from society. All communication phenomena should be explained by examining the patterns of power relations with society. Audience studies should examine how the process of meaning making of media messages by the audience is shaped through social and cultural structures. A critical approach that evaluates the process of meaning making and examines its relationship with the socio-economic structure of society. The reception theory or reception analysis are more known as encoding and decoding of media messages is brought by Stuart Hall. This theory proposes reception analysis. It is based on semiotic arguments. Stuart Hall argues that media messages should not be seen as a package delivered by producers to the audience. Hall stated that messages are encoded by message producers uh, as producers, directors, or editors, and then received or decoded by the audience. Individual audiences engage in the process of decoding or interpreting media messages differently. In this analysis also there is a category or group of audiences. The first one is the dominant reading group. It is a group where they agree or they take the preferred reading. Preferred reading is a message that wants to be conveyed by the encoding or the meaning maker. And then next there's a negotiated reading. That is a group where the audience modified the messages by their perspective, experience, and their importance. And then there's oppositional groups. They tend or mostly rejected the preferred reading, and then they tend to make an alternative meaning. Next, the reception analysis model turns out to provide a theoretical framework for the study of the nationwide audience by David Marley in 1980. This study examines how different audiences give different receptions to a current affairs program on British television titled Nationwide. Audience is capable of understanding and interpreting media messages, but still within a socially structured context. The study also assumes that society and individuals within society are not homogeneous but heterogeneous. In the nationwide audience, the society is divided based on 1. Class and social background, 2. Gender, and 3. Ethnicity. All of those social factors cause the audience to interpret media messages based on their social background. In a nationwide audience, TV messages are seen as complex symbols. The meaning of each message has been predetermined, yet it still has the potential to be interpreted with different meanings. The meanings we can derive from a message are structured in an imbalanced pattern based on dominant relationships. So, from all of the materials, we can conclude that the audience research has moved away from the simplistic notion of direct media effects on passive audiences. It recognized the agency and the diversity of audiences, their active engagement with media, and the complex social, cultural, and technological factors that shape their media consumption patterns and interpretations. That's all from me. I'm sorry if there's any mistake. Thank you for watching. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.